protocol here in the SACP, so I must be careful. Comrade Senzeni Zokwana is the national chair of the SACP. Sitting on his left is Comrade Tulas. He's on his phone. He refused us taking that phone. He's the deputy national chair. Sitting next to Comrade Blade on the left is Comrade Joyce Maropa, is the national treasurer. On the right of the GS is Comrade Solima Paila, President General Secretary. And on my left is Comrade Chris Matako, the second Deputy General Secretary of the party. The proceedings will unfold as follows. The GS will present the statement. We will then take questions for clarification and comments from herself, and then close the session. Over to you, GS.
That's fine. Sorry. You see, part of the delay, for 2 minutes only though, is we are debating which laptop is part already of the fourth industrial revolution. Now, it looks like I'm being proven right because this statement is not numbered. If it was mine, it would have numbered it automatically.
Of course, I want the GS not to debate technology.
Yes,
Given that there is someone here who comes from the engineering department.
And the national chair also said we mustn't talk about soccer.
National chair.
Yes, and what happened yesterday.
You are protected. We don't want anything to be mentioned about those people who wear black clothes. Even when it's very hot. Okay, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alex, and members of the media. Let me welcome you and express our appreciation for attending this press briefing. The South African Communist Party Central Committee, which is the highest decision-making body of the party between national congresses, held its first plenary session for 2019 from Friday to Sunday, 22nd to the 24th of February, here in Braamfontein at COSATU headquarters. On behalf of the Politburo, I presented as General Secretary the political report for discussion by the Central Committee, which was entitled, quote, "The Vanguard Role of the Party in Economic Transformation, the Crisis of Social Reproduction and Our Red October Campaign," unquote. The political report focused on the tasks of mobilizing our SACP structures and society in general to address the many economic and social challenges mainly facing working class and poor communities. The political report also focused significantly on the challenges in the economy and broader social transformation and development in our country, and on the tasks of the SACP to continue playing a vanguard role to advance, deepen, and defend the objective interests of the working class and the poor. The Central Committee attached great importance to this strategic task within the context of the urgent necessity and imperative to move our national democratic revolution to a more radical second phase. The Central Committee also briefly reflected on the positive role and the contribution of the SACP over the last period in continuing to stand firm against state capture and throwing its full weight behind the efforts led by President Cyril Ramaphosa in cleaning the state, including state-owned enterprises, of the corruption and malfeasance that threatened to run out of control over the last decade. The SACP is, however, of the view that it would be incorrect to describe the past 9 years as the 9 lost years. A lot of achievements were made by the ANC-led government over the past decade. These include, but not only limited to, huge investments into infrastructure, increased life expectancy largely because of government rolling out of HIV treatment, and increased investments into education and skills development. These are some of the collective achievements that the ANC and the Alliance are extremely proud of. However, there have been wasted opportunities. We must not deny that. And the Central Committee said we should not deny that there have been huge wasted opportunity over the past 9 years. And most of these losses are as a direct result of the corporate state capture agenda that crept in and gained increased precedence, as well as the accompanying governance decay, mismanagement, and looting of public resources and national wealth. That has been, all these, they've been associated with the agenda of state capture. State capture brought a number of our important state entities to their knees. The Central Committee reaffirmed the SACP stance that those responsible for this corruption must be held to account. In fact, another way of summarizing what we lost, the single biggest loss has been the ability to use our state-owned companies to drive a developmental agenda to benefit the overwhelming majority of our people. Instead, we are in a situation now where we are taking those very important resources we should be using to address the interests of our people to actually assisting and supporting state-owned companies, when in fact it should be the other way around. Inevitably, the Central Committee had an extensive discussion on the crisis in state-owned enterprises, particularly Eskom. The meeting acknowledged the enormous damage inflicted on these entities through a combination of poor policy decisions and state capture, as well as a result of other forms of corruption. For instance, at Eskom, the last generation build, prior to what happened now with Medupi and Kusile, was in 1984, which of course was a build that was followed by a series of blunders in the 1990s. Deals were struck, for instance, with BHP Billiton for Eskom to supply 25 years of electricity at 1/5 the price paid by other consumers like yourselves to aluminium smelters at Mozal in Mozambique and Bayside and Hillside in Richards Bay. These energy-guzzling, capital-intensive smelters were reported to be consuming a full 9% of all Eskom electricity in 2013. What is worse, the alumina powder, which is used by these smelters, is imported from Australia and Brazil and not mined in South Africa. And most of the products out of the aluminium smelters is then exported. What this means is that there was minimal local job creation in this whole process of supplying the smelters with electricity, no beneficiation of South African mined commodities, a massively subsidized tariff, allowing a major multinational to plug into our grid and then sail away with mega profits after consuming more electricity than the major metro cities in South Africa. At a time when we were suffering rolling power outages. This was a major legacy of the Mbeki 1996 class project, which was bestowed upon subsequent administrations. Another major legacy from that area in the 1990s, which was designed within the logic of the economic policy or the neoliberal economic policy of growth, employment, and redistribution, GEAR that is, was a decision not to invest in new power generation capacity at Eskom. Despite the white paper on energy policy produced in December 1998, projecting that electricity demand was likely to outstrip supply by 2007, and further acknowledging that long capacity expansion lead times required strategies to be in place in the midterm to meet growing demand. In other words, the white paper in 1998 had pointed out that we're going to run short of electricity. Right from that time, we should have planned and also embarked on new build for electricity generation and transmission. It was in 2004 when it became clear that power generation capacity was running low and older power stations were approaching the end of their life cycles, that then belatedly the decision was made to embark on the 2 mega generation construction programs, which was Medupi and Kusile, with construction starting in 2007 and 2008 respectively. As is now well known, these 2 projects were hopelessly misdirected in terms of scale and design. They are among the largest coal-fired power stations in the world, and their design, as is sometimes engineering language used, was bespoke, which means it was not based on pre-existing models. With its skills losses and a more than 20-year gap since the previous major build program in 1984, as we said, in 2007, Medupi was projected to cost 69 billion rands and Kusile 89 billion rands. By 2016, the official Eskom cost had doubled to 145 billion rands and 161 billion rands, respectively, with some independent analysts suggesting that could have been much higher, as contained in our statement. Despite the doubling or trebling of costs, not all of the units have been completed still. There are ongoing breakdowns and technical failures, and Medupi and Kusile are only supplying around 50% or less in terms of reliability, contrary to the promise that was made when the projects were started. Further, the transition to renewable energy generation was designed not in the national interest of investing in Eskom and securing its future in the sphere of cleaner energy production. As a result, Eskom was consequently forced to purchase renewable energy from the companies involved in the favored private enterprise model of independent power producer programs, as opposed to building state capacity and mobilizing social participation. This has had a huge negative impact on both Eskom and the consumers particularly, but not exclusively also through the tariff structure. The Central Committee, therefore, welcomed the consideration by government to initiate a renegotiation of independent power producers' contracts in order to reduce the pressures on Eskom and consumers. Consistent with the SACP's previous statements on the challenges at Eskom, the Central Committee reiterated the following: that we are fully aware of the very severe crisis the Eskom challenges pose for the country as a whole, and the urgent need to resolve the situation expeditiously and sustainably. The SACP is strongly opposed to the privatization of Eskom, but we support the restructuring of Eskom, provided it is aimed at making this entity function more effectively and efficiently, and most importantly, does not open the door to privatization nor place workers' jobs in jeopardy. The SACP also reiterated the fact that the terms of the restructuring must be concertedly negotiated with the trade unions and other stakeholders with the aim of seeking consensus. Eskom must take primary responsibility for the generation of cleaner and renewable energy power, which, by the way, includes expectations that government, Eskom, and other role players must invest more money into getting the enormous coal resources that we have to be mined and used in the form of clean energy rather than dirty energy. We need that as a country. We also need immediate and decisive action to be taken against those who have looted Eskom, and every attempt should be made to recover the financial losses from them. We note with disgust, by the way, as the SACP, attempts by some of those individuals who have been implicated in the state capture, who are trying to refashion and clean themselves now as if they were not responsible for this, and also as if they are the ones now who are having solutions. We don't want to influence the media. You must report the way that you want to report. But at the same time, please don't allow yourself to be used by elements who still have to account, who are trying to use your television screens and your radio waves to clean themselves. That's our plea. Much as we respect your freedom of expression and who do you choose to cover. We are also of the view that decisive action also needs to be taken against anybody responsible for sabotage in Eskom. And with the severe budgetary constraint, the state has to continue to provide financial and other support to stabilize and strengthen Eskom. But, and this is a big but, this must be accompanied by proper oversight and accountability. We can't just allow government to be continuing to pour resources without at the same time ensuring that these resources are spent in the manner in which they need to be spent. SACP leaders have already met and will continue to engage with our alliance partners, including the NUM, the government, and all other stakeholders to contribute towards addressing the Eskom and national energy security challenges. The Central Committee, reaffirmed the strategic relevance of the party's policy position that efficient public entities that are pursuing a developmental mandate remain critical to advancing a second radical phase of our revolution. The SACP will strengthen its efforts to engage on the critical challenges of building and rebuilding state capacity and institutions from specifically a working class perspective. Particularly, this means ensuring that any reorganization that may be necessary to rebuild our state-owned entities must not offload this burden onto the shoulders of the workers. In addition, we feel that there was inadequate oversight by government and parliament, as well as failure to ensure consequence management by the relevant bodies in the case of what has been going on in many of our state-owned entities. The SACP is also mindful of the changes in technology and the imperative to bring about a different and adequate energy mix that reduces carbon emissions. The party strongly believes that publicly owned institutions following a developmental mandate need to be active in the development of new technologies. While addressing the crisis in state-owned entities, and in Eskom in particular, it is without doubt the most urgent and immediate task on the economic front The Central Committee also committed the SACP to ensure that priority is given to other programs and projects aimed at inclusive growth, job creation, and a radical reduction of inequalities. It is in the interest of the working class, and indeed our country as a whole, to ensure that we build and rebuild the policy tools necessary for a more effective and increasingly efficient state-owned entities industrial strategy. In the coming period, the SACP, through its Central Committee Economic Policy Commission, will be engaging with progressive political economists, academics, and its allies in the labor movement to develop concrete proposals to advance the interests of the working class and the poor. As the SACP, we actually want to broaden participation and debate on what is to be done. We can't just be relying on professors who are going to be telling us one story: privatize, privatize, and privatize. We also want professors who are going to tell us how do we strengthen the role of the state in electricity provision, for instance, whilst at the same time ensuring that an entity like ESCOM is restructured to be able to move with the times. On retrenchments in the mining sector, the Central Committee noted with revulsion the continuing retrenchments by capitalist bosses in the mining sector. The SACP denounces the rationale that has been given by the mining companies to try and justify retrenchments. We are of the view that these retrenchments are driven by nothing but profit maximization at the expense of the workers. The SACP will be meeting with its ally COSATU and its affiliates to strengthen the campaign to fight retrenchments. Part of this work requires building wider working class unity through forging a popular left front that involves communities as well. The SACP Central Committee also supports COSATU on the Public Investment Corporation Bill that is before Parliament. Through engagements with COSATU and others, our own experiences, and also through our own experiences, we are aware that from 2015, there have been constant allegations of bad investment decisions and corruption by the PIC. We also note the threats by the Public Service Association to withdraw from the PIC, and we also note union demands that they be represented by their nominated experts on the PIC board. We also note the endless fights within the PIC itself, as well as the failure of the PIC to deal with these issues. The ANC's Parliamentary Finance Committee adopted a resolution in 2017 to introduce the draft committee bill to address these issues in consultation with all the stakeholders. The DA opportunistically tried to use the resolution to also introduce a private member's bill on the PIC, but the committee's bill prevailed. As the DA, by the way, normally does, they steal the ideas from the committees after discussions. Then they go and draft a private member's bill as if it is their own bill. After 18 months of intensive engagement, the committee voted on its PIC bill, which we welcome. It provides for union representation, amongst other things, on the board of the PIC, and that the finance minister, the deputy finance minister, must continue to chair the board so that we continue to protect PIC investment decisions as government. And also the bill aims to implement the instructions of the depositors guiding the PIC as part of strengthening its developmental guidelines. The minister and the board of the PIC also have to be more accountable to Parliament. The bill is part of the overall commitment of the alliance and government to tackle corruption and has been supported by the relevant parliamentary and other ANC structures. We note that the bill has already been voted on by the committee. We support this bill as the SACP, and we call upon the ANC in Parliament to push for the voting for this bill to be voted upon as soon as possible. Let's just clear one thing. The reason why we are supporting this bill is because we want governance at the PIC to be strengthened. These are workers' monies that are being invested, and they must bring returns. Of course, returns for the PIC means, yes, return in terms of protecting workers' pension funds, but also returns in terms of the developmental dividend, if you like. That these monies must be used in such a way that they promote development for the benefit of the overwhelming majority of our people. The SACP also looks forward to recommendations by the Party Commission on the PIC, and also the recommendations as contained in any bill that will be made by the Minister of Finance if they support these key principles that the SACP is advancing. As we have said, the PIC is extremely important for the workers. And as the alliance, we need to work together to ensure that we strengthen the PIC. We also call upon our allies, COSATU, and the broader progressive trade union movement to never again, we can say this because they are our allies, to never again stand far from what is going on in the PIC. As the SACP, we have for more than a decade been calling upon the trade union movement to come closer to the PIC so that they are able to see whether their monies are being invested correctly and wisely. We call upon them now to say, with these new initiatives, they need to come closer and not stand afar from how these monies are being used. On the forthcoming election in 2019, the Central Committee discussed this extensively, the coming election campaign, and also endorsed the progressive thrust of the proposals in the ANC election manifesto. The SACP has already started work to campaign for a decisive victory by the ANC for the benefit of the majority of our people. This election work is taking place within the framework of an agreement that we must discuss this whole idea of a reconfigured alliance so that we are able to work together as the alliance. Already 4 discussion papers have been produced and discussed by the alliance components on this issue of an alliance that needs to function in line with the times at the moment. And the Alliance Secretariat has tasked its Secretariat to produce a common alliance position. This has then given us strength to work together to ensure an overwhelming victory for the African National Congress. While expressing support for the investment drive by President Cyril Ramaphosa within the framework of government and the ANC's election manifesto, the SACP's Central Committee attaches great importance to ensuring that more investment is directed into the productive sector of the economy in order to create jobs and decent work. Related to this, the SACP further and strongly supports the ANC election manifesto commitments, which includes an industrial plan to support localization, investment into innovation, and broadening ownership in the economy. The importance of developing social ownership, including community and worker cooperatives, cannot be overemphasized. This is also crucial in the sphere of cleaner and renewable energy production to support ESCOM as part and parcel of forging a just transition. Maybe let's explain this in a sentence or two. As the SACP, we do not believe that cleaner and renewable energy should be the exclusive sphere of private power producers. ESCOM must be in this space as a state-owned entity of renewable energy. The Central Committee also took time to deliberate on the crisis of social reproduction. By this we mean the processes and structures through which class, race, and gender inequalities are systematically sustained generation after generation. We deliberated on this. Globally and domestically, the pressure of capitalist private wealth accumulation and its neoliberal policies have had an effect of decreasing workers' collective share of income and resource allocation. Related to this, the crisis of social reproduction that we talk about is evidenced by the social problems that we see in society and in our communities. That includes unsustainable individual and household debt levels, domestic and gender-based violence, increased prevalence of substance abuse and criminality, racism that is rearing its ugly head again, and other backward tendencies like tribalism and ethnicity, as well as susceptibility to exploitation by those who abuse religion to further their own narrow ends. For us, these are manifestations of what we call a serious social crisis in our households and communities. In the coming period, the SACP will intensify its Know and Act in Your Neighborhood campaign to mobilize communities both in confronting these crises of social reproduction as well as deepening our Red October campaign to tackle these. The Central Committee reaffirmed the SACP's stance against gender-based violence and the importance of organizations throughout our society to take appropriate disciplinary steps against whoever is alleged to have been involved in gender-based violence. The Central Committee, however, warned against the apparent use of allegations of gender-based violence as a means of fighting factional leadership battles. We warn strongly against this. Nothing should undermine the seriousness of sexual harassment, rape, domestic violence as violations of women's fundamental human rights. Nothing whatsoever should undermine this, nor should this be used for any other purpose other than to address this very problem. As we prepare for International Working Women's Day on the 8th of March, the SACP reasserts our commitment to the protection of rights of women workers, our commitment to build a socialist future in which social needs of women, and in particular of working class and poor women, are placed at the center of societal agenda. The SACP has joined the South African campaign to defend our sports heroine Caster Semenya, a woman leader of note, and an athlete who has achieved a lot, from what we regard as imperialist sports administrators' campaign against women athletes from our continent. And this smacks of the very same abuse that women like Sarah Bartman were subjected to years gone by. I'm trying to think, for instance, that with my poor singing voice, I can go and appeal to some international music association to go and check if our late Brenda Fassie didn't have some genes that gave her an undue advantage to sing better than my poor voice. We regard this as no different from that. That in fact, the International Athletics Federation is abusing its authority to try and discriminate against especially African women athletes. There are so many athletes that we have seen who actually have got, were in the same situation as Caster Semenya, but they've never been called to account or to be tested in the manner that this is happening. We stand by our Caster Semenya as the SACP. The Central Committee also condemns strongly the US-led imperialist agenda of seeking to undemocratically change the government of Venezuela and to impose an unelected individual as its self-proclaimed interim president. The SACP recognizes the elected president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and the government of the Bolivarian Republic he leads. The party expresses solidarity with the just Bolivarian revolution and the people of Venezuela, and we continue to form part of millions of people across the world opposed to the machinations of imperialism in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And we will intensify our solidarity in this regard. We would also like to plead with the media, by the way, please do not cover a one-sided story on Venezuela. Please do not cover a one-sided story that is being told by the United States and its allies. At the very least, cover all sides, including our own view as the SACP here in South Africa on the Venezuelan question. The Central Committee learned of the death of our iconic musician Dorothy Masuka on Saturday, the 23rd of February. We wish to express our condolences to the family and relatives of Dorothy Masuka for their loss. Dorothy Masuka contributed enormously to the struggle against apartheid and the struggle for democracy through her activist music. The music fraternity and the country as a whole share in the loss of this heroine and the loss by the Masuka family. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DS. May I invite questions for clarification? I will ask you simply to say your name and the media organization you come from and to ask your questions. You will be number 1, you will be number 2, you will be number 3, number 4. For logistical purposes, let me make you 1, 2, 3, and 4 that side.
Thank you very much. My name is Olu from PNC. You just said, that the Central Committee has warned against the apparent use of allegations of gender-based violence to fight infractional leadership. I firstly would like to ask what informs this particular position at this point in time, but also given the fact that some structures, for instance the ANC Women's Week, have called on the NEC member of the ANC, to step down following these allegations of rape against him. Is this particular warning that you are making in relation to that? But my second question is about ESCOM. We heard the ESCOM chairperson, Jabu Mabuza, when he appeared before the Zondo Commission just this week, saying that his company actually is benefiting from ESCOM. and he accepted that job with full knowledge that there would be conflict of interest. The EFF, for instance, was very open to say that he must resign. In view of that potential conflict of interest, what is your position? Do you really think he should go? And my final question speaks to your call for a reconfigured alliance. If you can just maybe tell us issues that you, or how you would want to see that reconfigured alliance to look like, but also if you have a non-negotiable points that you want to advance in that reconfigured alliance. Thank you.
Just next to you,
ISG, it's Ahmed Kajik from Eyewitness News. Along the similar lines to my colleague, just speaking towards your comments and perhaps your views on the allegations facing Sisi Kodwa at the ANC which came up last night. Thanks.
Sorry, just say that again. Sorry.
Just your comments and your views on the allegations facing Sisi Kodwa which emerged last night. I know it was alluded to by my colleague.
Yeah, Hannah Kutiki from SABC. My question is based on your call for people that looking to respond that every attempt should be made to recover the financial loss and the law to take its course. This is becoming sort of a diplomatic talk in South Africa. Every time there's corruption, the law must take its course, people must face consequences, and nothing seems to happen. Those are the years we've seen this. What is it that you're going to do to ensure that the law takes its course and those who are found to be guilty are prosecuted?
My name is Ntebu. I'm with the SACP. When listening to the statement, it seems the SACP agrees with the proposal by the ANC to restructure. I wish I could know what form of restructuring do you want as the SACP in ESCOM. And maybe secondly, it seems the ANC doesn't see anything wrong with its current black economic empowerment policy. I know that at some point the SACP had a problem with this black economic empowerment, saying that it has only benefited those close to the corridors of power. I wish I could know, as the SACP, happy with the current model of empowerment that is taking place. And I'm saying this against the backdrop of evidence that is out there that over the past 25 years, we've seen South Africa becoming the most unequal society in the world. We've seen South Africans millions of South Africans in welfare as opposed to in employment. We've got around over 18 million, if not close to 20 million South Africans who are on social welfare, as opposed to 16 million who are working.
Is that it for now?
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Lisa from the Sunday Times. Also on ESCOM, as you say, you are strongly opposed to privatization at ESCOM, but support this structure provided is able to ESCOM functioning effectively and so on and so on. You are talking about privatization, but the ANC has repeatedly said so that there is no such thing as privatization of ESCOM. Does this continuation of this reference mean that you don't trust the ANC in the kind of balance that they're doing, in that you as the SACP believe that this is a route towards privatization, as was alluded to previously? Secondly, on issues of the reconfigured alliance, those who are saying your insistence on this issue as well is, meant to cement your place at the eating table with a great drink and stuff referred to it. It's interesting that in this particular statement, it appears under the subtitle of the democratic declaration. Is there truth to such allegations that your insistence on the issue is just to take positions and be in the right places with the ANC, or what is the challenge to pursue this particular structure of the reconfigured alliance?
Thank you very much.
Should I use that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, because otherwise my voice is getting strained. Okay. You will tell me whoever else wants to come in if I don't. Look, on the issue of what we are warning against, firstly we say people who embark on violence against women, whether it takes the form of rape or physical or other forms of physical abuse, must be dealt with. And law enforcement agencies must be able to deal with that. Issues of sexual harassment, for instance, we are saying all institutions and organizations in society should actually deal with that decisively. But at the same time, we must be careful that in the light of factionalism that we still experience in our own movement, this does not get used to smear people and so on. Because in the end, that can only be determined by proper processes and procedures. But in this atmosphere, where, for instance, we are having a fight-back campaign by those who feel that the cleanup that we talk about, led by President Ramaphosa, may actually hit at them. Some of them seems like they are clutching at everything, all and everything, including the ones we are talking about who are appearing on the media now as potential saviors of ESCO, but they are heavily implicated in the state capture. So we are saying that we must never. There have been incidents in the past where, for instance, people have made allegations, on rape or sexual harassment, and they've been proven not to be the case. We are merely warning against that. We aren't entering the fray on any issue. Now, we have not been aware of the statement by Jabu Mabuza that he has admitted that his company has been benefiting from ESCO. So we can't comment on something that we haven't seen. We'll go and check that. If this is indeed the case, obviously it's a matter that needs to be addressed. Because you can't have someone chairing an entity where his company is benefiting, if that is true. But we don't know because we have not seen this. We are going to go and check whether there is any truth or veracity in this. We are not saying we are not telling the truth, but we are saying we haven't seen this. Look, we welcome the fact that all alliance partners, not just the ANC, have come to have an in-principle agreement that we need to change and improve the manner in which the alliance is working. We have outlined what we believe should happen, that there should be effective consultations within the alliance. Key decisions need to be debated and ideally agreed upon by all alliance partners, not just one alliance partner. And a whole range of other things that needs. For instance, we don't want an alliance that only goes to our people when it's election time. We want an alliance that has got programs on an ongoing basis to be with the people to deal with ongoing challenges at all times. We also do not want a government that gets used by factions to privilege themselves. That's part of reconfiguring the alliance. Then let's get rid of factionalism when it comes to the operations and running of government. People in positions of power can't just use deployment or redeployment in order to settle factional scores in the movement, which is one of the problems that we've been raising as an alliance. This has got nothing to do, if I can link it with the later question, on seeking positions. People must speak for themselves. If people think that being in the alliance is because of positions, it's their own thinking. It's not us. As the SACP, by the way, one of the things we're reminding ourselves, since our formation in 1921, we have been in the struggle to change this country. And we have been in every terrain, in every platform. Whether in building the trade unions, no other organization has that history like us. In the armed struggle, when the movement decided to embark on the armed struggle, the communists were there. We weren't expecting anything. In the mass struggles, in the underground struggles as communists, in rebuilding this country, we can't then say, because now it's after 1994, people now are able to access and to be in positions of responsibility. Therefore, we are not going to be part of trying to reconstruct and rebuild our country. But we want to state this. We are not in this because we are seeking personal positions as members and leaders of the SACP. Were it for that, we would not have had communists who have sacrificed their lives in order to build a better South Africa. So people who think we are in there for that, it's their own thinking. Often are people themselves who wish that they were closer, but for different reasons than what. It's normally those people actually who say, hey, we wish we were closer there. Since we are not close, let's just hit at the SACP. You are there for yourself. We are not there for ourselves, really. And we've always said this. If we are given responsibilities, as it has happened before, whether Chris Hani to command MK, or whether a Tulas Nxesi gets given a ministerial position in public works, we will honor that deployment with all that we have, honestly and frankly, in order to change the lives of our people for the better and not for anything else. Now, look, we can't comment really about these allegations about Comrade Zizu Goto. They remain as allegations as far as we are concerned. It's very important that the law enforcement agencies check it. We only hope these are not hoax allegations, but it's only the law enforcement authorities who can be able to tell whether this is a hoax or whether this is real. We can't comment on that. We don't have the means to establish that as the SACP. Rehana, yes, we agree with you. We are concerned about the fact that there are these allegations of corruption, state capture, malfeasance, but very little has happened. That's why, as the SACP, we were the first to call for the Zondo Commission, for a commission of inquiry to state capture, because we thought that will help us to take this matter a step further towards people accounting. We hope that when the Zondo Commission finishes, then serious measures will be taken. We are also very happy, by the way, because as the SACP, we have not been given enough credit that we're just about the only organization that has been consistent in saying state capture has not only corrupted ESCOM, but it has also corrupted the criminal justice system. We've been consistent, including the intelligence structures that were being used to actually consolidate state capture, and also to try and discredit those who have been standing in the way of state capture. We're now happy that the NPA is being cleaned. We are happy that there is a review that is underway of intelligence services. We ourselves, by the way, have reported to the Inspector General that we think that there was a malicious intent in what we have established, definitely, that SACP leaders were being followed as if we are enemies of this government. So that, we hope, is going to take us closer to action being taken. Because it's clear that action would not have been taken because the criminal justice system was being used by some element. We hope more information and exposures are still going to come out. That is what we need. That's why we support President Ramaphosa in this cleanup, because it's this cleanup that's going to help us to get closer to the truth and for action, for people to account. We are as impatient as you are on this matter. Are we happy with the current BE model? No. We have never been happy about this current BE model. As the SACP, we have been consistent. Yes, we do need black economic empowerment. By the way, it was a result of our campaign that there was even a new prefix to say broad-based. Because we were raising this thing that this BE is narrow. but also the BE is compradorial. What do we mean by that? That, for instance, your emerging black business people largely have become just extensions of existing major business institutions. They are not independent business people that independent control their own capital, for instance. That's another thing that we've not been happy about. And we still think that that needs change. That's how we are saying in our statement also, we need worker cooperatives to actually benefit in our economy. We need workers themselves to benefit much more from our economy than has been the case now. So we're not happy. Now, does it mean we do not trust the ANC when we say there must be, we emphasize this? No. We need to emphasize this because we are aware that there are elements who think that restructuring of ESCOM means then ESCOM is going to become a haven for profit making at the expense of our people. So we need to emphasize this because of that. And also, by the way, if government commits, we welcome it. But we can't just leave it to government alone. We need to mobilize the working class. We need to mobilize our communities to indeed ensure that that which government commits to does actually happen. We don't even think the ANC is against it. That our own people get mobilized and the trade unions to ensure that we are being held to account as an ANC government, for instance. So it's not because of narrow issues of trust or no trust. It's not a question of trust in struggle. It's a question that what we commit to what must be done, and our people must remain vigilant. That is the case. I don't know if there is anything that my comrades would like to add, and I hope I've touched on all the issues. You want to add on? Oh, okay.
Thank you, colleagues. I hope we have satisfactorily dealt with your question. Just before I close, let me check if there is any further question. In the absence of any further question, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much. This meeting, like most meetings, you have been and you are still going to be more inspired at the level of Thank you very much.
Yeah. No,
I thought so. You thought so?
No, it's imitating you.
Ah.
Oh, okay.